Hello and welcome to the Let's Create series where we work on a time tracker app. I'm Patrick. We're going to do a little bit of setup first since this is my first stream. But the idea here is, since it takes me so long to edit these videos down and get them posted for you guys, I'll record the videos as a live stream and I'll leave those up. And so for anyone who doesn't want to wait for all the videos to come out, you can go ahead and just check out the recorded live stream. And then I'll try to record that locally, and I'll cut those down and make the episodes as I've been doing, and those will be a little more refined, and they'll take out all of the delays and the breaks. So let me first try to test that I can actually record. So let me test that real quick. Okay, this is just a real quick audio test that I'm recording, and I'm going to stop that. And then I'll just try to play that back real quick. Yeah, it works. Okay, so let's get into it. So the last time we left off, we had some kind of issue with the test data repository. It wasn't mapping to that sometime variable that we had in test data. And so if we head back over to our Firebase, we can check these out and we can see that in this test data, we named it some date, not sometime. So let's just change that variable name and that should fix that. So change that to test date. Change that to some date. And that variable should be good now and it should map, and we'll test that in a moment. Since I took about a 3-month break, I actually forgot my test user. So I had to create another one. And so what I need to do, which you might not need to do, is I need to change this test document ID that I was using. So I'm going to head back over here. I'm going to grab this document ID and I'm going to copy it, and I just need to paste it over to here. And now we can test. So I'll run the app. Takes a moment to load. This is why I like to just make the regular videos and cut all this dead time out. But the nice thing that I think about this, doing it this way with the live stream, is if there's any questions, if anybody can jump in and they have any questions, then I can answer these in real time. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. So here we go. We can sign in with email. And if I remember, we have test 1, 2, 3. Excellent. So I was able to log in. I have a couple breakpoints here to see why that wasn't working. So we can just pass these breakpoints. You probably don't have them set. And then I can just take a look at my dictionary, and I should see that that some date actually did get set, 10/30/2020. Okay, perfect. So that did work. So I can just continue through here. I'll hit this breakpoint and we can make sure item mapped properly. So we can see the age is set and it's an integer. The amount is set, it's a double. The flag is set, it's true. The ID is set, that's good. Name, good. And some date actually is working now. So that fixes that, and that's excellent. So we can move on. So now that we have good data mapping, what we could do from here, I'm not even recording. So I just did the test recording. It worked and I didn't click record. So I'm going to run through all that just one more time real quick. Okay, so I'm going to run through this again. So last time we had an issue that the test data, some of the properties, well, one of the specific properties weren't being mapped correctly. So we had it here as some time, but when we head over to the Firebase console, we notice that it's some date. And so if we just change that in the test data model, we should see that that kind of fixes our issue. So if we just change this to some date, that should work. And so now if we run the app, we'll need to log in with our test user. Okay, with the app started, we can log in. I'll just use sign in with email. And with a successful login, our items should map, and we can use our breakpoint that we had just to take a look at item. And we can see that age, which is an integer, mapped properly, as did amount, which is a double, flag, which is a Boolean, the ID is coming through, name is there, and some date is now mapping properly. It's not that default Jan 1 date. It's October 30th, which is when I set up the new test data, and so now we can see it's mapping properly. That's great. So we can press continue. And so now that we have that there and everything seems to be working, we have successful data mapping from Firebase Cloud Firestore to our Xamarin project. So with that, we can stop the app. And now we'll make it so when the user clocks in, shouldn't have stopped the app. So when the user clocks in and they click clock in, the counter should start ticking. And then when they clock out, we need to save it. And so we do have this method where we're logging work item, but we haven't implemented this method yet. So we need to make an actual work service. So just to test, if we click clock in, looks like that's not, oh, I see. Okay, we got a breakpoint. I'm going to remove that breakpoint since that issue is fixed. And then I'll clock in and clock out. Did seem to work here. We should have gotten a break, but so if we clock in, our timer is ticking. That's great. And then if we clock out, it should give us, the 6 or 7 seconds or 8 at that time. And so that's perfect. So that is working still. So we can press stop. And now we need to make our work service. So it was using probably a mock work service. Let's go ahead and check Page Model Locator. So with Page Model Locator open, we can scroll down to our service registrations, and we'll see that iWork service is using our mock work service. And what we want to do is kind of use one of these repositories for Cloud Firestore. So instead of iRepository test data, we can do iRepository with a work item. So the work item, let's go into here. Work item is a model that we already have. So let's head over to Page Model Locator. And in here, we'll just make a registration. So container.register. This will be this will take in dependency service. So dependency service. And it'll be .get, and we'll use iRepository, and this time it'll be a work item. That doesn't look right. Hold on. Because I think work item doesn't implement identifiable. It doesn't. Perfect. Okay, so this just needs to implement identifiable. And then we'll get an error that we need to implement the interface, so we can just use a quick fix, implement interface, and that'll give us that ID. And instead of throwing, we'll just do a get set here as well. And we can save that, and that should fix that error, and it does. So we can see that our error is fixed. We no longer need this mock work service, and once we remove it, we're going to have, if we ran the app right now, we would have quite a few issues, specifically because we don't actually have an implementation for an iRepository for a work item. So let's make that. I suppose we need to also do the Java mapping, so we're going to get to that today as well. But let's since we started work item, let's proceed. So over in the iOS project, let's go into services, service, our base repository, and our test data repository. We need to make a work item repository. So add new file or new class. I'll use new class. And I'm going to call this work item repository. Okay, now that we have our work item repository, we can just extend from base repository, and we need to provide a type, and this will be of type work item. So we can use a quick fix here, and that will allow us to import the using. And then we need to implement the abstract class, which requires a document path. Now in Firestore, this document path doesn't necessarily exist yet, but it's going to look pretty similar to test data repository's document path. It will be in users, and then we need the user's ID, but instead of test, it will be, we can call it work or work items. So let's make that path now. We don't need to go into Firebase to make it actually, because when we save, if the document doesn't exist, it'll create. And that's what we want for users, because we don't really know what users are using the app. So when they create a new work item, then we want them to be able to create the document. So we shouldn't need to do that. But we do need to provide this document path. So we can copy it right from the test data repository, and we'll head back to the work item repository, and we'll just paste that here. And then we'll just replace test with work. Work is fine. And so that gives us that document path. Now, because we did all of the work with a typed parameter in the base repository, we don't need to do anything else here yet. So then back in our time clock page, we can head up to the constructor and we can bring in, so we don't really need iWork service anymore. Maybe we do. So the service should interface through the repository to talk to Cloud Firestore. So let's also work on the iWork service. I think we can keep that in the shared project. So we're going to do that for now. It's not going to be a mock service. We'll just do add new class under services, work, add new class. And this is going to be a work service. And so work service will implement the iWork service interface, and then we'll need to use a quick fix to implement the interface. And work service is going to want that repository. So in the constructor of work service, we can bring in iRepository, and this will be work item. And we can just call this repository. And then in the constructor, let's save a local copy. So underscore repo is fine, equals repository. And then we can use a quick fix to create that private member. And now we need to kind of fill these out in accordance with how we interface through the repository. So log work async, we only have get for now. And it gets just a specific document ID. So we need to kind of keep going on base repository as well. So let me just open base repository just to make sure it looks okay. So we have the get, which just returns a single item. Then we have get all, which returns a list of items. And so I do think that before we keep going on work service, we need to finish up the repositories. So this is another good reason why I'll keep doing the episodes, because I'll probably end up cutting most of that out. But I'm going to close these files. I'm going to close work service. I'm going to close work item repository. And I'm going to head over to the base repository. So we're already here. And so instead of get, which is already working, we need a get all. And so this needs to take a collection ID, not just a document ID. So where get takes in a string ID, get all needs to take in a collection ID. And so back in Firestore, we'll see that you can add a document. So I'm going to go all the way back to users. Users itself is a collection of documents. And in here, there are 2 documents. And when I open one of the documents, we'll see that I have a collection as well as some document properties. And then, so this is a sub-collection of this specific user document. And when I open it, it too can have multiple documents. So what we need to do from here is back in our base repository, get all needs we can either use a collection name, which I think is what we're going to do, or the document ID. But I think what we'll do, so let's just to map this out a little bit before we actually do it. So we have the user's collection, and then the user ID is the document ID for the user, which contains some properties for that user. But there's also, right in here, is the collection we want. So instead of test, this will be work. So I think that's what we'll do. So instead of string ID, we'll do string collection, or collection name, I think we'll do. Whoops, capital. Collection name. And so the thought process here is we come in, we grab the user's table or the collection, we get the user ID. Now we're just in here and we want a collection name. So that's perfect. So we'll take a collection name. And so this will do something very similar to what get did. And so we want a task completion source. So in the get all, we'll remove that throw and we'll say var tcs equals new task completion source. And now instead of a T, we want the kind of the return type to match the return type of the method. So it'll be an iList with type T. So iList type T. Got one too many in there. And so that's all this will be. And then, just like always, we'll return tcs.task. Hi, Samo. Sorry, there's going to be kind of a delay. I'll type in here because I think that's a little faster. But thanks for joining. All right. So in here, I'll try to keep a better look at the chat, but just know I might reply through text before I kind of reply vocally. So anyway, in here we have the TCS equals task completion source, and that takes in an iList of type T. Then we return that task, and that gets rid of our error. But now we need to try to set the result. So we can go through Firebase. So we'll say Firebase.CloudFirestore. We can use Firestore, and then we'll get its shared instance. So in here, we want to get the collection of the document path itself. So let's pause here for a second, and we'll head over to our, it doesn't matter, we can just head over to the test data repository. And just like we were talking about, this goes into the user's collection. It grabs the document that has the same ID as the user, and then we're just grabbing this sub collection. So that's really all we want to do. And so now that we have the collection, we want to get documents, which I believe returns. Nope, this lets us hit that completion right away. So that's what we'll do. So we'll get documents. And so this will take in a snapshot, I'm sure. We'll see if it throws an error and an error. We'll use a simple lambda. And so this is a query snapshot, which I believe is the same as up here. Nope, document snapshot. Okay, we'll see how that changes. And then we have error, which is an NS error, just like the other one. Okay, good. Yeah, we can make it work offline and on. Firebase actually kind of includes that for you, and then when you come back online, it'll sync it back up to Cloud Firestore. So in here, just like always, we want to check for error. So if error does not equal null, then something went wrong, and we can just keep that kind of comment there. So something went wrong. And in here, we'll just TCS try set result. And this will just kind of be like a default, which for a list will be an empty list. And then we'll just return. Otherwise, we don't have an error, and so we can try to convert this list. And so this will be probably a little more. Yes, so that is something we're going to do. So in the chat, Samo said we're going to, use SQLite to sync with Firebase. We are going to do that, and there's a really huge reason why. So I'm going to actually take a moment to explain that. So the reason why we're going to do that is because Firestore charges after so many document reads, I think it's 50,000 per day, and so many document writes, I think it's 20,000 per day. You'll notice that while we're in the app, none of the data that has been there is going to change. So we don't need to keep reading it. We basically read it once, and then we'll keep our local copy of that data through SQLite, and we can just send the updates to Cloud Firestore, like when you log a work item. That way we're reducing the amount of reads and writes we're doing, and thus saving money. And then if the user uninstalls, reinstalls, or logs into a different user, we can clear that from SQLite, and we'll just do another big read. But then from there, we're not doing very many reads or writes again. So yeah, good point. We are going to get into SQLite pretty soon. But first, we need to get Cloud Firestore going. So in here, we need to take a look at the snapshot and what it'll kind of give us. So snapshot, and I'll just press a period, and we'll see what it's going to give us. So it is going to give us I like that, documents. Okay, so let's grab documents. And then if we say dot in here, what is it going to give us? So this is just a collection of documents, I believe. Let's see. So if we say var docs equals snapshot.documents, that must make the actual read. And so then from here we can say for each var doc in docs, let's see if we kind of have the same properties as this snapshot here. So I'm wondering if this is a document snapshot. It's not really. It's a query document snapshot. So let's see what we can do from here. Let's see, data is a dictionary. Okay, so that's So it's pretty similar to a regular document snapshot. If we head over to our snapshot extensions, we kind of do the same thing, right? We say doc.data, and then we run through it. So I'm pretty sure we should check to see which way this goes. If document snapshot inherits from query document snapshot or vice versa. So I'm going to do a quick Google on that. Why not? We're just going to try it. So we'll go back to the base repository. And so for each of these, we're going to just map it directly. So our current item is going to be equal to doc.convert. Let's see if this works. And so this will just be a T. And so that'll do the conversion for us. Then we need to store it in a list. So we need to make a list up top. Yep, I will do. I'm going to reply to Semo real quick. Okay, great. And so right below that TCS, so we're going to say var list equals new, and you can't make an iList, so we'll just say list of T. And then every time we convert this, let's add it to the list. So we'll just say list.add, and we'll say item. And so once we're done with all of this conversion, we're going to return that. So we're going to say tcs.trySetResult, and this will just be list. And that should suffice. And so for either case, we're returning some way, right? We're either setting the result as default or we're setting the result as list. And so that's perfect. So that should work as a get all, and we're gonna test to make sure. So let's go ahead and test. All right, so we changed the signature for the method. So let's go to the declaration for the iRepository. And now get all can't be empty. You know what, I guess it can, right? Yeah, it's gonna be. For now, let's make it empty. So we're gonna move collection name. Oh, we didn't even use it, so that's perfect. Exactly. I was gonna say we're gonna move collection name down and we'll set it to the document path, but that's already what we're doing, so that's perfect. Let's just get rid of that. So get all can be an empty method. I mean like no parameters. And then in here, it'll get the collection from document path. It'll get documents. It'll run through the query document snapshot, and it'll just convert all our items and return. Hopefully, that's on a good day. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to head over to the time clock page model, and we already kind of have some, test code in here to see if everything's working. So instead of get and a specific document, let's get all. And so this, just to remove confusion, I'm going to change this from item to items, right? And then I'm going to put a breakpoint here as well, and I'm going to run the app. So this will take a moment, and there's probably going to be some frame drop because it seems to be expensive on the CPU. So this will take a moment. Let's let it run, and then we'll just make sure that it's, so while it's loading, we can talk it through. So what we were doing was coming into this collection, grabbing a document by its ID, and then parsing its data into a single item. Now what we're doing is grabbing the entire collection, parsing every single document that's in there to a list of these items. So that should be good. Hopefully it works. Let's take a look. So it's building. Let's take a moment and let it build. Okay, looks like the build finished, so it should be running hopefully soon. I'm thinking the software I use for live streaming is really bogging down my computer because it doesn't normally take this long. So I'll have to kind of figure that out. This is my first real stream, so hopefully it gets better as we go. So let's log in. We should hit this breakpoint. Oh, yep. All right. Fair enough. So we have a page model locator resolution exception. And so that happens because while we tried to use dependency service to get this, Oh, no. That's not even about the repository. I'm just thinking back. I should have waited on that error. But anyway, I removed the service. So like iWork service. I'll just Control Z through this because there we go. So I removed that. So you can also probably Control Z. I removed the work service. Kind of replaced it with the work item repository. The only thing there is, they're not the same. The service doesn't replace the repository. It uses the repository. But there is one thing. So instead of iWork service, mock work service, no, we can leave this. And, because we started work service, but kind of decided, hey, we need the base repository to work first. So let's go ahead and back in our work service. Well, it doesn't matter. We're not even registering it. So let's leave it. We're going to leave this work service alone because we're going to need to do that. So let's leave it alone. But let's definitely comment out this registration for the iRepository on the work item. Let's comment that out just to kind of prevent any issues that we might have from the build, especially because my build takes so long. And I don't want to keep doing that. That's wasting your guys' time. Anyway, so I'm gonna press run. This should work out. The reason I'm still using the mock work service is because we're not actually focused on the work service right now. We're focused on getting our repository good. So we just added get all, and that is going to, the way we're going to test that is with this test data iRepository. So that should be good. So I'm going to let this build. We should hit this breakpoint after we log in and just kind of cross our fingers and hope that items is not null. And if it is, there'll be a debugging session, and that will, not be the greatest. But here we go. All right, so the app built. And so we'll log in using email, just kind of with our test user. So test123 is my user. Whoops. We'll come in here, and this should hit our breakpoint. Items is not null. That's outstanding. But we do want to make sure that all the properties are still being mapped, and they are. So we still have age, amount, flag, all that stuff. So that's great. So our get all method works. So we also need to test. So I'm going to press stop. We also need to test kind of saving. So in our base repository, we have the save method. We're not using it. We also have a delete method. We're not using it. So we need to do both. So let's open base repository, and let's just go to save first. So instead of throwing, we're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is change the return type from bool to string. And here's why. So when we save a new item, we want to get its ID back because the app is unaware of the ID since Firestore is the one that creates it. So let's change these. So we'll go into the iRepository declaration. So I scrolled up, right click iRepository, go to declaration. And instead of save returning bool, we want it to return a string. So let's make that change. Press save. And then I'm going to go back into the base repository. We have an error, as we expect, and that error is saying you're not implementing the string version. So let's change bool to string. So now this error won't go away, but this one does. And so now we can make that task completion source as we normally do. So we'll say var tcs equals new task completion source. And this needs to be kind of the same return type. So this will just be string. And then, drop a couple lines and return tcs.task, which gives the shared project something to await. Okay, so that looks good. Now we need to do the actual save. So in between these two lines, I think we need to convert this to a dictionary for iOS. We're gonna see what happens, but I'm pretty sure it needs a dictionary. But we can make that conversion in our extensions. But for now, let's go ahead and call Firebase Cloud Firestore Firestore shared instance. We could make that way easier. We're probably going to eventually. So Firebase Cloud Firestore Firestore shared instance dot. And now we do want to save this in the same collections. So get collection, and this will be document path again. But then we want to set document. So I don't add document. Yep, there it is. And so we'll look at this signature, and it does take a dictionary of NSString for key and NSObject for object. So we need a conversion. So for now, we need a couple things. So the first one is we need to kind of pass in the object we're saving, I think, right? So let's change this. So instead of save by itself, we'll do save and then a typed parameter of t. And then this will be t item. Can't be t. So let's call it t item. And then we'll change this to, my apologies. So this does have the same item type. So we don't need to worry about a new typed parameter. So let's just get rid of that altogether. Let's go back to that iRepository and let's change save. Nope, we don't even need to change save. We do. We need to change it to take in the item. So t item. And while we're here, we might as well do the same thing for delete because we also need to kind of do delete item. So let's do t item here as well. So now we've changed save and delete to take in a t item. So we'll go back to the base repository and we're going to change delete while we're here to take in t item. Okay, so with that done, we'll head back down to save. And so now add document. Add document wants a dictionary. We don't want to keep parsing all these dictionaries all the time. We want another convert method. But this time we're converting back. I wonder what the best way to do that is. So I guess it could be an NS dictionary. No, it should be an extension on the item itself. So we know all of these items are going to be of identifiable. So what we'll do is go to extensions. So we have iOS extensions. Let's right click, add class. And this will be identifiable extensions. So that's a mouthful, but identifiable extensions. And so this way we can convert I don't know. This is going to be tricky. We're going to think this through though, because a little bit more work up front saves us a lot of work at the end. So that's definitely what we're going for. But either way, this class needs to be static. This class does not need a constructor. And we need it to return, so public static, it needs to return an NS dictionary. Whoops, did not mean to run. I meant to do a quick fix. And this needs an NS string as the key. and an NS object as the value type. And so then in here we can say this, we need to give it a method name. So we'll just, we can just call it convert again. So this will take in this identifiable, and then we need to use a quick fix to import the using, and we'll just call this item. So then we need to return that NS dictionary, before we even really do anything. So we'll just say var, we can call it dict again, equals new NS dictionary, and of course the same types as we need. And then we're going to return that dictionary. So this doesn't actually do the conversion, but it allows our app to continue to run. So I'm going to head back over to our base repository, and we're going to see if this will allow us to actually use that extension. I'm pretty sure it does. So if we say item.convert, it does. But now we need a way for Firebase to let us know what happens with this document. So what you end up doing is adding these snapshot listeners, right? So, or completion listeners. So add, let's see. We don't really want to, no, we don't want a snapshot listener. Snapshot listeners notify us when certain document properties change. So let me just do a real quick search here, and let me see what the best way to do it is. Three overloads. I wonder if this lets us add it. Let's see. Oh, it sure does. Look at that. Add document completion handler. Perfect. Let's see what other ones it gives us. So I'm going to go up. So the first one is, a C# dictionary of object. I like that. That's better than converting. The next one is an NS dictionary. And then that C# dictionary object, and then the add document completion handler. So that is the one we're definitely going to use, I think. It's just easier. We don't have to make that extension method now. I like that. And then, of course, the next one, the fourth option is that NS dictionary with the document completion handler. So that's great. We are going to convert just the POCO, the plain old C# object, over to a regular C# dictionary. That's excellent. That's what we're going to do. But before we do, we need an add document completion handler of our own. So let's make a new folder for that. So in iOS, right-click, and we'll add new folder. And we'll just call this one, Firestore Listeners, right? Because overall, this is pretty specific to Firestore. So this will be Firestore Listeners. And now that we have that folder, we can right-click and we can add a new class. And this new class is going to be that document snapshot listener that we need. So let's just look at this again, and let's see. Add document completion handler. So that's what we need to kind of implement. And so we'll add the class, and we'll just call it our own, just for lack of better name, because normally I do a little bit more planning on these. But we're live streaming, so we're just going to call it My Document Listener. Yeah, love it. My Document Listener for now. We can do like a rename later if we find a better name or if we need multiple document listeners. So My Document Listener is going to extend from, let's just do it all the way. So Firebase, Cloud Firestore, add document completion handler. We'll use a quick fix because I'm sure it wants us to bring in a couple methods. Oh no. Okay, all right, can't do that. So we're gonna end up deleting this, sorry. But back in base repository, maybe we just say new and then it takes in something. Okay, it takes in a block. That's fine, we can lambda it. So error, and then we'll just kind of do like a lambda on it. It's got no return type, so that makes it easy. And now we can do the same thing. We can check to see, you know, hey, is error null? If not, then let's grab some properties. Yeah, Roblox Battle Royale. Yeah, so that's coming. It's hard to run 2 series. I'm gonna kind of type back to this because there's like a huge delay. I do want to get back to the Roblox stuff though. I just finished making a new game and it was very fun. So I do want to get back to that, and I will. I just don't know when. It's like I said, it's very hard to run 2 series at once. It's hard to run just 1 series. So I will do my best. I'll get there when I can, and I'll try to make it sooner rather than later. But here we go. So let's go ahead and clean up project, right? Because we don't want all these files floating around if we're not using them. I was pretty surprised that we can just kind of add it and then lambda into it to get the result. That's pretty awesome. I don't think Android is like that, but that's okay. I mean, that's great for us. So I'm going to blow away this Firebase Listeners folder. I'm going to delete the whole thing because we don't need it yet, and we don't want files sitting around that we don't need. So I'm going to delete that. And now we're in here, so we can check for error. So if error does not equal null, then something went wrong. We'll use that same comment, something went wrong. We'll try to set the result to the default. So tcs.trySetResult, and that will be default. And then we'll return. Otherwise, we're here. I wonder if this handler, I guess this handler doesn't really give us, I guess we do just return true, right? I wanted to get the ID, but I don't want to make another query. So for now, let's change this back. It's not going to return string. It's going to return bool. So let's change this back. We'll go to iRepository and we'll change that back. And now we need to change the TCS here to bool. And so default is false. And so if we got here, we'll just say tcs.trySetResult, and that'll be true. We do want a breakpoint in here though, because honestly, I'm not even sure if this is going to work. We might not need this extension method because I'm pretty sure we can use reflection to just turn this item into a dictionary. We probably don't even need to do that. We could just use Newtonsoft, which is what we kind of use anyway. We're going to use Newtonsoft. So let's get the JSON string. So that we don't have to keep typing this over and over, let's definitely do the convert extension. So we'll go to the IIdentifiable extensions, and we'll say var JSON string, or just str, equals Newtonsoft.json convert, not that one, convert dot serialize, and that's what'll turn it into a string for us. And so this will be item. So that'll serialize it into an item. The one thing we're going to see, I think, we can remove it. We're going to remove it. Because here was what just happened, what I kind of just thought about. So all of these items have an ID property. The way Firestore works is they don't have that ID property in the document. It's the document ID. And so if we don't remove that from this dictionary, I'm pretty sure it's going to turn that ID into a property. So it'll be the document ID as well as a property on the document. And we don't really want that. So we're going to remove it. But for now, so we have this var dictionary equals new dictionary, but we don't need that anymore because we're not actually going to use an NS dictionary. We're going to use a regular C# dictionary, and it's going to be object object. So let's change this signature, and then we're going to have an error because we're not, using system collection. So let's go ahead and import that using. And this dictionary is no longer what we want. So let's say under this JSON string, let's say var dict, right, dictionary, equals newtonsoft.json.json convert .deserialize object. And now we're going to say this is going to be a dictionary of type object object. And we need to provide the JSON string, so JSON string. Okay, so now we have that. Now we want to check to see if the dictionary contains the key ID, which it should because all I identifiables do. So we'll say if dict.contains key, and this is going to be ID. And so if it does, let's remove it. So remove, and this will be ID. Okay, and then we can return ID, and we should be good. So let's try it. Let's see if this works. So back in base repository, this is all no error because, it's allowing us to use a C# dictionary of type, object, object. So that's great. So let's try it. So we'll head back to the time clock page, model. And now instead of items equals this.getAll, we're going to say result equals save, and now we need to save a new work item or a new test data item, right? So let's go ahead and do new test data. We'll drop down so we can set some properties. Then we want to kind of check the result, really. All right, so some properties. We don't need ID, but we kind of want everything else. So we'll say age is 30. Amount is, I don't know, it needs to be a decimal. Well, actually a double, right? In C# a decimal is another thing. Flag, let's say false because we've only been using true. And then name we'll say is some name, getting creative. And then someday equals date time dot from, we'll just say now. We'll just say datetime dot now. Let's see if that works. This might be the biggest problem, right? Because if it's going to convert it to a standard date, and Firebase doesn't recognize it because they have different standards, might be an issue. But let's see what happens. So I'm also going to break point here on result, and I'm going to press run. And then we'll test, and we'll see if it will save items. I'm just looking at this lag here. It's pretty long. I think it's like 10 seconds probably. Maybe even more. Yeah, I'll have to do some digging around on settings because, as you guys ask questions, it's going to take me so long to reply to them, or at least for you to hear my reply. All right, here we go. Sign in with email, just same thing. We might speed this up. Kind of store user credentials so that we don't have to keep doing this. Okay, so let's see what happens. It's trying to save new data, and we're probably going to get some kind of error. But either way, it should kind of return back to us, right? So save new test data. So in our base repository. That's weird. Did we get an exception here? Let's see. All right, sorry, I got to stop and rerun. That's a shame. Okay, so this call is happening. It is making it into this conversion. And so our JSON string likes to take a very long time to show me what these variables are. Might be easier to just set them as a watch. I think I will. Okay, so that did. It's here, so that's good. So if we try to step through, the dictionary did work, right? So we have ID, it's still there, but it's null, and we're going to remove it. So let's go ahead and let it remove. Then we'll check the dictionary now. It should only have 5, and it does. Age, amount. Oh, interesting. We might have gotten an error because this should be a decimal, and it's not. All right, we'll have to take a look. So false, some name, and the date is right. So back over to our base repository. We can just kind of see what happens here, right? So it did do the conversion, but the completion handler is not returning, right? So it's not telling us, hey, is there an error or not? And that's weird. Let's check Firebase and see if it's trying to actually save these. Nope, it's not saving because we would have work, right? Oh, no, it would still be test, but it would be a new document, and it's not working. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's not cool, but all right, here we go. Let's see why. So add document. We are adding a completion handler. I wonder if this can't be the problem. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to take a look at it. I'm not gonna do that on your time. So this is probably where I'll end tonight. It stinks because it ends up only being probably about one episode after I cut all the delays out. But yeah, definitely thanks for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, definitely tune into the next one. I'll probably try to do these every Sunday. There are going to be some Sundays where I can't, and so those will either get canceled or I'll move them to a weekday. Yeah, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. So next Sunday at 5, I think, 5 p.m. Central Time, which is the time I started this one. And we'll move through it further. But otherwise, during the week, I'll try to get this one cut down and put into an episode. Hope to see you again. And thanks for tuning in.